Hi everyone, today I'll be unboxing it just came today, it's been the release date today, the Super Nintendo Classic Mini. Now this follows on from Nintendo's previous effort, which is a mini version of the NES. Now, wasn't too impressed with the NES version. I used to own an NES, but seeing as it never really took off in the UK compared to America where it was huge, by the time people bought an NES in this country, being surpassed in graphics by the 16-bit systems, or they were just due to come out. It was the likes of the Commodore Amiga and the Atari ST. That's what most people tended to have in this country after buying the likes of the Commodore 64 and the Spectrum and the Amstrad. So it wasn't really a console country, as it were, apart from the old Atari VCS in the 80s. People tended to have the 8-bit computers instead of the likes of the NES. So around the time the Super Nintendo came out, people embraced consoles a lot more, particularly with the Sega Mega Drive or the Genesis if you're in America. And then after that, about a year later or 2 years later, was the Super Nintendo, which obviously was better hardware wise, but obviously both machines had different types of games, and I own both. I had a Sega Mega Drive and a Super Nintendo. So here is the Super Nintendo, got it from Shop 2. So I'll just open the outer box. It's just come not about 10 minutes ago, something like that, so I haven't even glanced inside the box yet. So let's see if I can get this container off. There we go. And here it is. So it's a teeny tiny Super Nintendo with the packaging akin to what the packaging was like back then. And here's the list. There's all the games that are pre-installed on there. Now, unfortunately, like the classic Mini NES, there is no way to play any of your old games. So there's no cartridge slot. Everything's just pre-programmed, stuck on a flash ROM chip. I think that's just, it's just stored on there. There's no way, I think, of downloading anything from the Nintendo store. So it's very, very limited from the get-go. But saying that, the games that they've put on offer on this are absolutely, brilliant games. You've got Super Mario World there. Now, I'm not a big fan of Mario's platforming adventures, but the likes of Super Mario Kart and Super Mario RPG, and that I like his other types of games. I'm not a fan of platform games, so that's included there. It's got Donkey Kong Country, Secret of Mana, which is one of the best Japanese RPGs going. Super Castlevania IV, F-Zero, Final Fantasy III, I think that was also known as Final Fantasy VI. Super Metroid, Star Fox, which is also known as Starwing. Super Mario RPG, Super Mario Kart, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, another one of the absolute best RPGs of that time. Mega Man X, Kirby Superstar, which is also known as Kirby's Fun Pack, Super Mario World 2, which is Yoshi's Island, Kirby's Dream Course, Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting. Now, when I got my Super Nintendo, I got the pack with Street Fighter 2 because at the time Street Fighter 2 was hugely expensive. It was about £65 just for the game. So what I decided, the year that the Super Nintendo came out in the UK, which is 1992, I got that as an included bundled game with the console, so that would drop the cost considerably, because otherwise it's just far too expensive to buy on its own. But saying that, it was one of the best types of arcade conversions. It was almost arcade perfect, so you can understand why they put the pricing up on that. Then there's Contra 3 as well, which is also known as Super Probotector, which replaced, I think it was Mercenaries in the original Contra 3, but in Super Probotector they changed them into like robots, I think. Not too sure on that. Super Punch Out, which follows on from Punch Out on the NES. Super Ghouls and Ghosts, which is the sequel to Ghouls and Goblins. I think it's Ghouls and Goblins, Ghosts and Goblins. I think it's Ghosts and Goblins. That's it. Yeah, Ghosts and Goblins and Ghouls and Ghosts. Earthbound, which is a little-known RPG, but I've heard great things about it, so I'll be trying that. And also, the main draw for this is the exclusive never released sequel to Star Fox or Starwing, which is Star Fox 2. That's an extra game that can be unlocked by completing the first stage of Star Fox. So there you go, there's an exclusive there for you. So here's the unboxing of it. I'll also do a comparison with the original NES and controller, which I have at hand as well. Here's the box as it slides out, packaged to look like a shrunk down version of a console, which is what it is. It looks exactly like what, you know, your larger consoles would be packed like, the usual type of packaging. Especially Nintendo, they tend to use like these cloth covers for things. So here's the mini Super Nintendo. Tiny little thing. Unfortunately, you can't put a cartridge in, and the eject button doesn't press in either. The reset button works, as does the power switch, and unfortunately the joypad covers, controller covers, they're just, it's like a fascia. I think, does that just pop out? It's just shut. I think it does actually. I'm not too sure of the way it pops out though. I don't want to. Oh, that's it from the bottom. Unclips at the bottom there. So it just pulls out, and there's your controller ports there. Looks to be like a standard, when they started using the Wii, like those types of controller ports. So that's the, and it's got a HDMI out and a DC in, power in for there. Totally different to the rear of the original, which I've got here, and it's yellowed through age. Oxidization's got to it. So there's the original. There's the eject button there. There's the cartridge slot, and of course on the reverse, which was never used, you unclip it there. Well, that's an expansion. It says EXT. You see from that. Now that was the basis of Sony's PlayStation. Nintendo did a deal with Sony. They were going to release an add-on CD-ROM drive for the Super Nintendo, and it was going to clip onto there, and unfortunately the deal fell through. Nintendo didn't want to deal with Sony anymore, so that was never used, and Sony thought to themselves, we're not going to totally scrap this idea. Instead of making a peripheral, we'll just make a new system, and that's where the first Sony PlayStation came about in 1995, all because of a deal with Nintendo falling through. So who knows what would have happened if they'd kept that deal going. You know, you might have ended up with a super company of Sony and Nintendo in collaboration with each other, but of course it didn't work out. So yeah, that's the original Super Nintendo, and for size comparison, there's the Mini. So it is vastly smaller. You can see that there. It's almost a quarter of the size. So that's the original there. And we'll get one of the controllers out. And I've got two wired controllers. There's the HDMI cable, and here is, oh actually no, there's the HDMI cable, sorry, that's the power cable. Yeah, that's the power cable there. There's the HDMI, there's controllers. So we'll just get this unlocked there. On that. Now here's the, it looks for all intents and purposes exactly like the original controller. Feels the same. It's got more of a rough finish to it, but then that might be because the controllers have obviously had 20 odd years of aging on them. Buttons feel the same, as do select and start. The D-pad feels more, it's more tactile. It's got more of a rough finish, as I said. It's probably because of age. The original one feels about the same though to move, and the L and R buttons on the top as well. So they look exactly the same. I'll just get my old one. Here's the original, covered in dust, the original Super Nintendo controller, and here's the classic Mini one. So they look practically identical, apart from the newer one has got faded writing, whereas it's much more prominent on this. And there's the L and R buttons, which are actually marked on this, and they're just like an indentation on there. Yeah, just like an indentation slightly on there. So apart from being slightly faded, the D-pad's also darker on the new one, and it's much smoother to feel on the original one. And also the cable for the original is a lot longer, and the connector's different, as you can see. Different connector. So here's the new connector type. Looks just like your standard Wii type connector there, with the clips on the sides to hold it in place. And yeah, you just slot this out and pop your connector in there. There's connector 1, and that just goes in the front like that. So that's the classic Mini there. Just have a look what else is in there. It's an old game as well for comparison. Here's an old Super Nintendo cartridge as well. It's Super Off-Road. Unfortunately, there's just even if they did have a cartridge slot, there's no way you'd be able to put that in there. The cartridge, it's about the same size as an old Super Nintendo cartridge, roughly. Slightly overlapping, but you know it's almost the size of the cartridge, which it would just be a physical impossibility to put a cartridge in this classic Mini. So I just get the rest of this unboxed. Let's see the power. Now I'll probably hook this up to the TV just to give you a brief walkthrough of the menu. Hopefully it's not a dud and it'll work, so it probably will be, like, it'll be fine. Let's just connect this to the back. That's the DC in. There we go. And it's entirely powered by the USB port. Just check. Nothing else has fallen out. I think it's entirely powered by USB. Sold separately. A Nintendo USB AC adapter, or another 5V 1A output AC adapter with a USB port, or a TV or monitor with a HDMI port. While some USB compatible devices may be able to supply power to the console, Nintendo cannot recommend any particular device. Please make sure to follow the instructions of any third-party device. That's just Nintendo being stingy again, isn't it? Because the likes of DS's, you don't even get a power adapter for those. You have to buy them separately, an extra like £10 on top of the cost of what you're paying for that. Nintendo are just really, really stingy. Any other company would supply you with that, but no, Nintendo, buy your own power supply. So that's Nintendo for you. I'll have to see if I've got an adapter there. Don't really want to risk it with a phone adapter. So what I shall do, I shall hunt around, get the power options sorted out, and I will see you in a moment when I've hooked it up, and I'll show you what it's like on the TV. See you in a minute. Okay, so back now with connecting it up to the TV. Let's just get this shown on the screen. Right, so it's all connected up. Now it's the menu just saying put your language in basically. So let's choose. There we go. Go down to OK. Select A. There we go. And there's a list of all the games. All the games on the Super Nintendo Classic Mini. Star Fox 2 there. Mana, Stream Course, Final Fantasy III, there's Earthbound. I want to try that, never played that game. So let's put something on quickly, just to show how it runs. Street Fighter, let's try that one, let's see how fast it loads. So get the camera back a bit further, there we go. Sounds exactly the same as what it did on the Super Nintendo. There we go. Turbo, normal, or the options. Let's try turbo. Game start. And yeah, it looks very pixelated. I think this is just in the normal mode. We've also got the 4:3 screen resolution as well. Let's try Chun-Li. So you gotta remember the moves. Oh, dials in there. Ooh. Not too bad. Ooh. Just about remember to do that. Oh no! There we have it. So it seems to play exactly like it did on the Super Nintendo. Doesn't appear to be any slowdown in gameplay. And I'm powering this entirely through my PS4. Just move the camera this way. So there you go. It's powered entirely from my PS4. The USB port there. There's the cable. Right round to there. There you go. I'm probably going to get knocked out by Ryu now. Let's check this. Oh no! He's going to batter me now, isn't he? Oh no! Forgotten half the moves. So yeah, it appears to be pretty much the same. Let's see if I can pause this now. I think to get out of it it's going to have to be reset, so I'll just press the reset button. Yeah, reset gets you out the game. Looks quite decent. There's a menu, there's all the suspend points. When you reset a game you can create a suspend point. Menu, display, options, language, legal notices, manuals. Let's go to options. Oh, there you go. That'll play a demo in the background, or a classic demo, screen burn-in reduction as well. Oh, there we go, go back to there. Let's go to display. Right, we've got a CRT filter here, that just puts scan lines on from like an old tube TV. Got your 4:3 aspect ratio, you've got a pixel perfect ratio, which I don't know what it does, but I suppose it'll make it more blocky, I'm not too sure. There's all your background options there, instead of having just a plain background. There we go, default black. Okay, that and go back. Yeah, you know, that's it. There's the Super Nintendo Classic Mini. So, thanks a lot for watching this video. I will undoubtedly be back again at some point with another unboxing. So, please comment if you wish, like, subscribe, even better, and I will see you all in the next unboxing video. Thanks a lot for watching. Goodbye.